Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're talking with Jason Wilkerson from Blue Paranormal. He is an EVP specialist with over 600 locations under his belt, so we're going to have a lot to talk about. So stay tuned tonight on Unraveling the Darkness. Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening. How are you?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I'm good. It
You
was
got a
quite the
hectic day.
evening. We talked about that. I rushed to get here to be here on air in time, and here we are. We made it.
You made it.
I made it.
I'm seeing double. You're sweating. Yeah, so
Yeah, you've been studying.
man, I have been cramming. Yeah, but Friday at like 11:50, the test starts. I'll be done by like 2:50 at the latest. I got 3 hours to knock it out and then it's done. So,
You have passed both of your practice tests, and I think you got it. I think you'll be fine.
thank you. Yeah, I think so. It's just test anxiety up until it's done, right? It's not done.
Right. Right.
Well,
So
tonight we've got Jason Wilkerson. Yeah, he's got a lot of investigations under his belt, over 600 locations, some overseas. Like, it's pretty cool.
yeah, that's we should have a lot to talk about. Whatever place I'm sure we want to pick. It sounds like you may have been there.
Yeah. All right, let's bring him in. Hello, Jason.
Evening, guys.
How you doing tonight?
Good name, Jason versus Aaron. even though Aaron seems to be the crazy name at the moment with all the stuff with Aaron Goodman going on.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy to listen to his victim impact statement during that sentencing.
It's just mind blowing, like how all that got put together and everything that was going on, and then they gave her like, she's going to be out in like 2 years or something by the time it all comes down or something. So
right, like 3.5 to 7. Yeah, good time. And no,
Yep.
no. So
Yeah, I'm still trying to process that, right? Being able to hire a hitman or attempt to hire a hitman, and
but guys, she was just paying $11,000 for cell phones. Come on, guys.
Oh yeah, that's right.
yeah, so crazy. Yeah, if that ever happens, Jason, then you know where to look.
Yes. Yes.
Are you hinting that may happen? Because
No.
I mean, depending on which one of it is, we can investigate you. If it happens that way. So
I've thought about
be
that.
one of those
We all
rowdy
need
ones,
we need code words, right? So when we finally
Right.
eat it and Aaron's investigating, I could be like, he's like, I got dipshit on EVP. Like, oh God, that was Jason. That's his word. Like,
Arts are funny. Oh, well, Jason, you're down in Kentucky.
I am in Kentucky, where everybody just thinks there's one building here, which is Waverly Hills. There's no cities. There's no anything else. It's like, you're in Kentucky, you must be close to Waverly Hills. So that's what I always say. Yeah, we only have one building in the entire state.
Dang.
Yeah, your house, then Waverly Hills. So two.
Exactly.
Not one on my bucket list. I mean, if I made it there, I'd make it there, but not one that's on my bucket list like most people.
I understand. I mean, it was good back in the day. It's been a few years since I was there. I don't like the cleanup process because that takes away. I mean, the windows and I mean, literally, I think you could eat off the floors now. They've cleaned it so well. So
Wow.
Yeah, I bet
That's
that kind
crazy.
of takes away from the atmosphere then, huh?
definitely. That tunnel's always fun. I always try to tell people, I'm like, go down to the bottom. I mean, the complete bottom, and have somebody stand at the top and shine a flashlight, and it looks like a pinhole. It's just how far down it is. So
How long is that?
I think it's like 300 feet or so, maybe a little bit further.
Wow.
See, that would be the place if we go out there and investigate. Jason would be at the end of the tunnel doing a solo. And yeah,
Dude, I ain't running down there if you need me.
I know.
That's all right. There's steps and then there's the slide, so we can just slide you right down.
There we go.
Right. So, besides Waverly, what other buildings? Let's just cover Kentucky first. Besides Waverly, what is there in Kentucky?
Not a lot, just to be honest. There's a lot of state buildings in Frankfurt that have the same old gray lady stuff, that everybody has at places like that. Even though a friend of mine that works for me at UPS has come across kids running through the hallways there, to the fact that the state police won't even go down there anymore because they're so freaked out hearing stuff running around and moving. There's some good places in Harrodsburg. You've got Perryville, Battlefield close to Harrodsburg, which, I don't like to pass out names of shows, but one of the shows that went there, the guy that was running the stuff at Perryville was like, "Oh, we've never heard gunshots and cannons at night." I'm like, anybody could walk out there and hear that all the time. So make it up for TV, so.
I was out in Gettysburg a few years ago, and we're actually getting ready to take a trip out there here pretty quick, the whole team. And same thing. Yeah. You just walk out, you hear them.
I would love to get back to Gettysburg. We did an event up there a few years ago, and then we had a family friend pass away while we were there. So we literally drove 8 hours, stayed to the event for the first day, investigated that night, got the call, and turned around and drove right back home. So
Bounce out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we investigated that little schoolhouse there. It's across from one of the hotels there. I don't know what it was called, but that place was active crazy.
Was it the orphanage actually, or?
I don't know. It was just we just walked across the street from the hotel where they were having the event at. This is back when Dana and them, I think, used to do the event there or whatever. So
nice. We're looking at a few places, so hopefully we can get in something while we're out there. It seems, when you start planning stuff, like it tightens up real quick,
Oh yeah.
So we're doing, we're going to go down to DC one day and do some stuff down there. And that gives us only a few more days up there. And you start trying to squeeze in like a tour and this and that, it all your time seems to go away. But we have a lot of daytime stuff, and we should have some nighttime stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that's why I find so many places, is because I travel a lot first of the year when it's cold and nobody else wants to be out investigating in the cold. So
That's
there
the
you
way
go.
to do it.
Your cold's a little different than our cold.
Oh, my cold can be anywhere. When I go overseas, I'm going to like Austria and stuff like that. So as long as there's snow on the ground, I'm feeling good. So I didn't ask, where you guys at?
We are in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Our cold is no snow and minus 20 degrees with the wind chill.
I get it.
So yeah, and Austria and that is probably close to that, I would think. I don't know. Our big thing is we're high plains, so it's the wind.
That's one of the states I've never been to. I've been to 38 states, but I've never made it to Wyoming yet. So,
well, get out here.
Wow, man, we got some spots for you.
Yeah, we'll show you some places.
I'm down if I can find a new spot anywhere that's not something that just popped up on the map last weekend like everybody else does these days. So
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, we got a place here in Cheyenne we've actually got the keys to, and so we can spend a weekend investigating. And yeah, it's a historical building that's got a lot going on. So
I'm down. I'm feeling like a trip, and I'm taking care of you guys. Like, hey, you guys are getting steak this weekend.
There we go.
Nice.
And not the kind that walks around out there. We're going to an actual steakhouse.
It's all over the place too. Like you'll see the difference when you come out this way. It's not it's not trees and all that kind of stuff that I've seen back east. We're pretty barren.
Yeah.
So Jason, what's your in your bio you sent us, you said about 600 places in 23 years. That's a lot of places to cover. Let's start you said you did overseas. Let's start overseas. Where are some of the places that you investigated?
Well, the first place I got to go to was Ancient Ram Inn. It's my first time going overseas, and of course, I wanted to find somewhere to investigate. And there's a couple of different companies over there that do it. There's Haunted Happenings, and a group that I'm still friends with. They've shut their event company down, so they just do their own things now. But found them online on my way over to England, and it was $50. I was like, "Oh man, I get to go to almost 1,000-year-old building," and there was only 8 of us there.
Wow.
So there was like 4 people signed up, and their team. So it was very, very small, and that was good. Love the atmosphere. The town, the hotel I stayed in town was the only hotel left on the street when a fire burned the entire place down. So that was back in the 1720s.
Wow.
Called the Swan Inn. But yeah, the Ancient Ram Inn, first time I'd ever seen cat balls used, which it's funny they had all that stuff over there, and even though I've got the fake Ouija boards from, Five Below behind me here that everybody seems to want to go buy. They're big into Ouija boards and scrying over there. So they had a big glass Ouija board at the event. And it was kind of funny is because I do live EVP, even though it's not real time. I just put my headphones on and I use a vintage Olympus digital recorder. I've, got 30 of that I just keep buying and add more stuff to. And we got a voice on the recording that said, "Move the box." So we're all sitting upstairs in the attic and we're like, what's that supposed to mean? So we're all looking around like, what box is there? All we saw was a bunch of carpets rolled up. So we just started moving these carpets back and forth. And there was a box underneath these carpets that had a Bible that one of the churches there had been looking for years. It was like 1861 Bible.
Oh, wow.
And so we talked to the owners, like, where did you guys find this? Like upstairs under like 8 rolls of carpet, like, nothing had moved. So she's like, the church has been asking me about that forever. So I don't know why the spirits picked us to, find a Bible that's supposed to go to a church that's been looking for it, but that was fun.
That's cool.
Nice to walk up behind a place that you see a cannon laying in the ground, like a real cannon. It's like, that's a nice walk up to the building.
Do you find, we talked to someone, the name slips my memory. They had gone, Dr. Kelly, going overseas and investigating. Do you find the spirits act different than they do over here?
I guess I haven't noticed that. And that was my worry, was getting over there and seeing what kind of language you're going to run into with EVPs and stuff like that. And I made a joke about it because I went to Paris to the catacombs and investigated a spot there where there was nobody at. I asked them, I said, "Hey, can I pay extra? And you guys just let me in, kind of do the last tour of the day and just kind of hang back and take the slow walk." And a lot of people call me the EVP King, which I didn't come up with that name. Everybody's like, that's what it is, because you get Class A everything. And in the last tunnel where the big round mound of skulls and stuff are before you walk out, I'm sitting there and just asking a few questions, and I hear EVP King, and I was like, no way. There's no way that it said that. And I'm like, all right, who's the spirit that's following me around that said that? Because it wasn't in French, but it was amazing to hear some of the stuff walking through there, just hearing, breathing like somebody's walking with me through these tunnels, like somebody's walking beside you, and you just hear, and it was just like, and it's dead silent in there. When you're underground and walking through there, it's dead silent. You don't hear anything.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
We had the discussion a while back when we were driving around, headed to somewhere, about spirits in other countries and how do they communicate, and do they speak their language when we're asking the questions. So we've had that discussion too, and I think we all had kind of a different philosophy on it as to how that happens. So I don't think anyone really knows how that's going to work,
Right.
And we just kind of hope that they'll communicate to us how we're speaking.
If they don't, I guess we got a new idea to come up with a translation EVP device that's never been came up with before.
That'd be pretty cool. It actually
Do it
like
with AI
translate
now?
languages.
I
Yeah.
need to call the guys at Ghost Stop. I'm like, hey, can you come up with a translator that translates foreign languages when you go somewhere else to investigate?
Another thing, we have a sponsor, Horn Paranormal Research, who builds equipment, and maybe another thing for Scott to look into.
Yep. Just one more thing, right?
Yeah, I'm waiting.
Already
I'm
added, like,
waiting.
yes, we need a
I'm
yes
waiting.
no box that actually works. We need.
I tell you, a guy who builds a really nice box, and they're always like sympathetic to the boxes they build because it's usually somebody's took wood or something from a location or whatever. His name is Jeff Fent, and he's here in Ohio. And man, he builds some of the best boxes, and they're just amazing.
Horn just did a fundraiser type thing and giving away one of his boxes.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. To have wood from somewhere you investigated, or a homestead or something like that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So overseas, you've done the catacombs in Paris. You've done the ancient Ram Inn. Where else have you done?
Well, I got a chance to go over and do a walkthrough with a couple of people at Lep Castle. It was, it's weird when you get to a place and you want to investigate, but you just want to take it in because you're just sitting here and like, I mean, the first time I went, the people I met, they're like, "Oh, you're from the States. We want to come to the States and see Vegas, New York." I'm like, "Are you serious? Like, look at all this history. I know it's everywhere over there, and I know you maybe get tired of seeing it over there, but like when you go to a place like Lep Castle, it's hard to even want to do anything. Just sit there and just your mouth drops to the floor. And just
Yep.
Yeah, that's
so.
that's my bucket list place for overseas.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's from the first time seeing it. Ghost Hunters International,
Yep.
when Ghost Hunters started the international team, they went over there and they did Lep Castle, and I saw it and I'm like, I want to go there. And that is the place I really want to go to.
And it's great. The guy that owns the place lets people come in, and tour the place, which you don't find very often over there because it's like royal family lives and everywhere over there, so it's hard to get into so many of these big places that you look at.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to secure a spot. Well, the last 2 years now to Paveglia Island in Italy, and you got to have like permission from the country. You got to have like a permit and all this stuff just to go to the island.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, you can charter a boat, but it's like you got to stay on the boat. I'm like, I want to stay the night on the place. Like, drop me off the dock and come back and get me tomorrow.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'm still working on that one, and the other one I've got that I'm working on is Daksa, Daksa Island in Croatia.
No.
And it was there's a 12th century monastery that's kind of fell apart on the island, but it's called the Cursed Island. It's been for sale for years, and there was Nazis that were assassinated there years ago, and they dug their bodies up, I think back in 2009, and took their medals off and actually put them in a museum there in Croatia somewhere.
Wow.
So I did talk to a guy that would take me over to the island. He's like, I'll let you off. He said, but you got to find somebody to come back and get you. He said, because we don't like to go to that place.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I'm like, why can't you hit the lottery? I think they're only asking like $1 million for the entire island.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. I'm like, let me hit the lottery so I can go and investigate the island all the time.
$1 million's nothing anymore, right? I mean,
Right.
I look back and I think Gina and I talked about it. She's a survivor watcher. The first year they gave away $1 million. Now they're like 50 seasons in. They're still giving away $1 million. Like, why aren't you giving away more now?
Right.
Yep. Reaching, man. Come on.
Right.
$1 million won't get your hospital bill covered anymore. So
Yeah.
Right. So how about the States? Let's start with, you're close to the coast. How about along that coastal area on the East Coast there?
There's a place right up the road from me, and I always say it's one of the best places. It's in Ohio. That's not really on the coast, but it's called Poasttown Elementary School. And I've been going there for about 11 years. And it's one of the most active places that I've ever been that has no history of anything going on there. And it always makes me bring up the fact that I think as investigators or anybody in general, I think you can imprint spirits on a location. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like, if you go somewhere and there's been stories in the past and you just keep talking about it, I feel like there's kind of a door there somewhere. Spirit's like, oh, somebody wants me to come and hang out or whatever. And this school is had a little girl that fell down the stairs, did not die at the school, died at home. There was 2 train crashes back in the 30s that happened 7 years apart in the same month or on the same day. And they kind of used the property at the time for triage. But it's just amazing to walk through a school and hear lockers open and shut and kids laughing and running down the hallway and giggling. It's just, there's no way to explain it. It took me 8 years to get this little girl they call Sarah that runs down the hallway. You can play a game with her in the back hallway and just get her to knock on the door 3 times when you're walking down the hallway. It's like, if you can knock on the door 3 times before I get to the end of the hallway, you win. And it was, and I mean, it's amazing to hear it. I mean, I'm with a group that came down from Michigan, and we're sitting in the hallway, and this little girl's voice came across the box that said, "I love it here." And dude, I was in tears. I mean, I was just like in the floor, like pick me up with a mop because I was just floored. Because you try to get something besides giggling and everything else. I mean, there's plenty of EVPs that come through there, more than I've ever gotten at a lot of locations. But to hear a child's voice, which is, you want spirits to be happy. You don't want them to be like, scared or thinking they're in the way or something like that when you go to places. So when you get a kid's voice like that, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Crump Theater in Indiana, right up the street. I've got their shirt on. It's a 135-year-old theater. I've been helping them renovate. They're trying to put it all back together. I investigated at an event about 10 years ago, and then it shut down. And now they've got some people that are involved putting it back together again. And I just love old theaters because you just never know what you're going to run into in a theater.
Yeah.
It was the first place that I got to investigate where I had a medium that I got a reading from. I don't get readings a lot because I'm one of these people who believe that there's very few original people that actually do have a gift. And this lady sat down and tried to read me there, and she got nothing. And she got upset. She's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to waste your time." And she asked me, she said, "Do you care if I pray with you?" And I was like, "Okay, that's kind of weird, but all right." And we were in a room that's completely locked shut. It was just me and her. And she said, "Put your hands on top of my hands. And that way, you know that it's just me and you in here." And she started praying, and I felt a finger go across my forehead, and I like to jump through the ceiling. And I'm like, but there's plenty of people that see a lady in black that walks the theater balcony and stuff and walks down the steps. I didn't get to see it, but I did get quite a few EVPs in the basement where some of the dressing rooms used to be. So,
yeah, I don't know what it is about theaters. We did a music venue south of us a little bit, and we got some pretty good stuff there. And there always seems to be haunted theaters around. I don't know if it's just, the energy of people coming through, and, it means a lot to, a lot of people, especially in like smaller communities.
I think one of the places I investigated in Indiana too was Geyer Opera House, and nothing really affects me. Nothing really bothers me. I don't get freaked out unless something runs up on me, but it was weird to walk the backstage of this place by the dressing rooms, and you just felt like there were people staring at you like, "Why are you watching me change clothes?" Or "Why are you watching me get..." I mean, that's what it felt like. You walk past these rooms and you just felt like somebody's just staring at you like, "Hey, can you let me get changed? I'm trying to do a show here."
It's kind of the same way in that one. They had rooms upstairs, and they'd have musicians come through, and in the 30s, they'd let them, food and board, and they'd let them stay up there, and then they'd headline the shows. We're in this hallway. There's 19 rooms, and we're in this hallway, and like I had no problem looking into this room. We're spread out, but like this room, it was like, don't look in here, don't, and it was serious. Jason came down, went in there, and walked around. He's like, "Oh, was dark. He's like, "Oh, I just hit the wall." I hit the flashlight, and he's like 3 feet from the wall. I'm like, you didn't hit the wall.
Yeah, I had bumped
Yeah, it
into
was-
something solid, and I'm carrying the camera, right? So I'm trying to be careful, and I'm sidestepping, and yeah, I mean, it was like I thought I was just at the end of the room, and no,
Yeah,
that
whatever was in
weird.
there
That
didn't
was
want us looking or in there or anything. It was pretty crazy. Kind of the same thing where they're just watching you. And
Geyer Opera House reminds me of the Adams Family home because they have a stairwell in the front lobby that literally you lift up almost like you lift up a big door and you walk down the stairwell. So it automatically thinks of like the stairs in the Adams Family house.
that's cool.
Wow, yeah, that would be weird.
Up the East Coast, my favorite place that I've been to, which was back in 2020 during COVID. I was coming back from Europe, was the Conjuring House. I got a chance to go when Corey and them still owned it. I messaged him while I was heading back home, and I said, "Hey, do you have a night available?" And I mean, I was willing to pay for the entire place for 6 people just to go and say I went. And he was like, "No, it's $125 a person, whether you got one or whatever, So I was like, "I'm on it. I'm put me down for 2 nights. I'll be there." And hooked up with a group that I'd never met on Facebook somehow out of Michigan, and they came, and I thought we had an amazing investigation. One of them was a so-called medium, and after 5 hours, they turned around and drove 12 hours back home. It was some of the best EVPs I've ever gotten. I think the one that I got that probably freaked them out was the guy in the basement that said, "My house, you are free now to go." And it's amazingly clear. Every time that I play it back, or we played it back that night, and you hear us all like saying what the spirit said. It's like he took a pause, like "my house," and we said "my house." It's like, "You are free now," and we said "you are free now," and it says to go. And I think that's what freaked him out. Like, and I was like, you got the whole night here. You got 3 rooms upstairs to sleep in, and I'm like, "No, we're going to stay in the car." And I'm like, "This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity."
Right.
So.
Like, that's what you're there for, right? I mean,
if I'm driving 12 hours, you better have something drag me out of the house in order for me to leave, because I'm like, definitely not leaving. And so I said, "All right, well, you guys go stay in the car, and we'll go have breakfast in the morning." And I get up at 6 o'clock, and Corey's downstairs watching the cameras. He's like, "Where's your group at?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "I just messaged them. We're supposed to go have breakfast." He said, "Dude, they left like an hour after they went outside last night." And I'm like, and I messaged him. I'm like, "Where'd you guys go?" It's like, "Oh, we saw stuff coming up on the car and banging on the windows." And I was like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "And you left?" So
That's like some of those TV shows. God, I watched one where, it's like they're spending all this time. I think it was in Egypt looking for like a dogman type creature, right? That was in like the sugarcane fields. And I mean, they spent like a week out there, and then they get into the fields and they hear a growl, and they all turn around and haul ass out. And it's like, man, that's what y'all are there for. You guys just interviewed like 20 people figuring out the best spot to go,
That was always what cracked me up about Brian Harnwall back in the early days of Ghost Hunters. I started investigating way before TV was ever out there with shows, but his whole thing was, "Dude, run." Like,
Right.
Why are you running for?
Dude, run.
I forgot about the dude run thing. Yeah.
I mean, I watched Ghost Adventures one time, and Zach was telling Aaron to go in this room, and Aaron turns around and looks at him like, "No, dude, like, no." He's like, "Go, you got to go." And Aaron was like, "No, dude, I don't want to go." Like, he was serious. Like, "I'm not going."
What was that TikTok you showed
it's
me?
Always Aaron. It's like,
Aaron?
I don't want to go either.
What was that TikTok you showed me from Ghost Adventures the other day, where they got that EVP?
Oh, it's the one. It's on TikTok, and it's like Zach, and he's like, "What's the one moment in Ghost Adventures that's burned into your brain?" And it cuts to an episode where he asks a question, and then it comes across where it's like, "Your mom." like, did this spirit just say my mom so he could? And I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, it was freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
It was. There is when we were in the Conjuring House, they've got a library there, and we were all sitting inside the library, and it just seemed like the light just dimmed, like almost like a spirit just came in and covered the room up with darkness.
Oof.
And which, I never got any weird feelings. I went out on the property, which is, where a lot of places, have a lot of activity. And I remember one of the guys talking to me about you could take a metal detector out there and pick a rock up with a metal detector. Like it actually hits the metal detector. So I don't know what's on the property or what's going on there. I had some EVPs of what they call the crooked neck lady, the lady who supposedly hung herself in the barn.
Mhm.
We were investigating upstairs, and she kept saying, "You're not listening." And I'm like, "I am listening."
Right.
And then she was like, kept saying that. And I'm like, "I don't know what you want me to listen to." I'm like, "I'm sitting here in a closet by myself. Like, what are you trying to tell me?" And so got that like 3 or 4 times. We actually we kept getting the name Ed. So obviously we figured it was Ed Warren. And one of the people that was with me asked, why you keep asking for Ed? And very clearly come through the box says, because we can.
Wow.
And it's the most intelligent EVPs I've got anywhere. Like they were answering every single question.
Isn't there some soldiers buried like in front of that house or something?
I think it's in front or to the side. Like when I got there, I did a quick walk around with Corey and didn't really ask a whole lot of stuff because I just wanted to kind of come in there blind and see, what kind of feeling you got just walking around the property.
Right.
And I don't know. I really hope the place gets opened back up because, like I said, it was a once in a lifetime opportunity to go. And I wish everybody could experience. I mean, I know there's been a lot of people there because the place was booked up for like 2 years straight every day.
Yep.
Right.
I went to, when they left, obviously I went and got breakfast and drove over to the Lizzie Borden house. Did a private walkthrough over there because it's weird to me. Like nobody was at the tour, which is weird to me. I mean, I know it's Lizzie Borden house. I know it's Massachusetts, but I guess I was the only person that day that signed up. So I got to do a little EVP stuff in there. Didn't really get anything. But it's a neat place. Got to go to, I can't remember the battleship. I got to go over there and walk around the battleship that was on the harbor there in Boston. And I forget the name of it now. It was kind of overshadowed by the fact that I just left the Conjuring house and Lizzie Borden house.
Yep.
Went to Exeter, Rhode Island, and tried to investigate the cemetery where the supposed vampire is buried at.
Oh yeah.
It's so funny to me when you walk up and you see this. It's just kind of stuck by itself. I mean, there's a cemetery there, but it's just kind of stuck there in the cemetery by itself. And there's a church there. I didn't get bit. She didn't come to me in spirit wise. I tried to do everything I could to get something, but no, nothing. So, but that was fun.
So what's the best EVP you've caught?
I mean, that one from the Conjuring house is pretty good. I mean, as far as very clear, like, that man saying, "My house, you are free now to go," and some of the other things we got, like, one of the girls on the team at the Conjuring house said, "Where are you going?" And it said the other side. Like it literally come through and said the other side. So it was like very, very clear responses to the questions. As far as the sympathetic side, I mean, obviously the little girl at Post Town. I mean, just to hear her say, "I love it here." I went to a house that used to be a doctor's office in Indiana, and I was like, "Mr. Whitmore." That's all I said was Mr. Whitmore, and there was a guy's voice came from the upstairs, said, "Who's calling me?" So, when you can get a response back to a question, that's not completely off the wall somewhere, it's hard to pick out a favorite, but I think those are two of my favorites. I mean, I couldn't even tell you how many thousands of hours of EVPs I've got. And the reason I run it the way I do is because it saves me from having to go back and listen to hours and hours. When I do an investigation with somebody, I hear it come through the headphones as it happens. And I stop and I'm like, play it back for people right there on the spot. So I don't know what I've got tuned in.
Yep. So you're using like the live listen, headphones, hear everything as it's recording.
I mean, I'm just using. I mean, I've got skull candies. I mean, I have to change headphones about every year, but I I've just got it plugged in. I have to plug it in halfway into the recorder so I hear it through both earphones. But it's just, I just hear it as it comes. And people's like, how do you hear this stuff so clear? I said, because I'm not listening to you or anything else. I'm just listening for what's not there. There could be a ton of people next to me and nobody's saying anything, or somebody asks a question. I don't hear that question at all because I'm waiting to hear what's going to come through. Hopefully that nobody, I'm not hearing anything else. So.
And you said you like to use vintage recorders. What recorders are you using now?
It's the same Olympus 8000, VN 8000. Every time one comes up that's new or something close to new on eBay, I buy it. And I've got probably 30 that have evidence on them, and probably 10 more that's still in the package. So whenever I run out of time or whatever, which on those things can last forever, but that's the only one I've ever used. I mean, it's been discontinued for years, but you find them popping up on eBay all the time. I'm not going to go spend the crazy money for a Panasonic DDR 60 that everybody swears is the holy grail.
Yeah, $1,000+ Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I don't.
It'd be cool to have one just to say I have a DR60, but yeah, not for the money that they are now.
I don't think they come through as clear. I mean, you watch them on the TV shows with some of the people that use them. I don't think they're that clear. I mean, I do. The only thing I would like to have is the old Hack Shacks from Radio Shack. They're a couple $100 if you can find them on eBay. Yep. Those are pretty cool as far as any other equipment. So.
Right. So you told us about a couple of the places that you're trying to get into in Europe. How about a couple places in the States that you haven't been to that you want to get into?
Man, I'd love to get into Preston Castle, the boys' home. It's just like, I don't think there's any way getting in there. You hear that those kids are supposedly mean. You're just hoping you can walk in and see what kind of ramped up energy you can get in a boys' home. That there's obviously the shows have been there. The Whaley House would be amazing if you could get in there. I mean, I know they just open it back up for museum stuff or whatever and tours like that, but I kind of follow, the Godfather of Paranormal when it comes to places like that. I mean, John Zaffis to me is the Godfather. I mean, that guy he's all knowing and one of the nicest people. And I know he's investigated there and I've talked to him about it. That's one of the places I'd love to get into. Probably, I mean, I've not been to Missouri State Penitentiary. I'd love to get there, just because of the shows and the tours that people have did there. They kind of leave out the guy that I kind of researched years ago, which is Charles Ray Hatcher. They compared him to Jesse James as far as like serial killer / robbery and everything else, and he hung himself in there. And I don't know why they don't really kind of pick on him when you get in there and investigate that place. I think he'd be one of the most knowing spirits in there.
Right.
And probably last, I would say Idaho State Penitentiary.
Idaho State.
It's I don't think Ghost Hunters did it. Ghost Adventures did. It's, from what I've been told and a couple people that have been there, it's probably one of the most active places they've ever been to. And these are seasoned people that, I haven't been to Ohio State Reformatory. Just, it doesn't really set well with me. I got to do Moundsville a couple of years ago. I've got Trans-Allegheny on my location list in September this year. That's been my bucket list place for a while. So I get to go and check that place out. I mean, I can't imagine how big it is inside. I mean,
yeah.
A friend of mine named Copperhead, he used to be the tour guide there. And literally I've watched him on video walk down a hallway with a group and literally tell a spirits like, hey, can you open that door down there? And as they're walking down the hallway, you see the door come open. And it's just like, because he was there every day doing these tours and he got so connected to the spirits, they were like, he could just pretty much snap his finger and they just say, okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of one of my bucket list places, is to get in there. I think, spend a weekend just kind of hiking around, and
it's unbelievably hard to find 10 people to pay $180 a piece to go and investigate, and everybody can get the day off, or the night off. So
right, that's some of those places back east are that. You're looking at $1,500, and it's you need a pretty good sized group to help cover that. You know,
Yep.
we can. There's 4 of us, and it's like, yeah, if we split that, that's a lot of money. So yeah, you start looking. Brushy Mountain. That's one of my bucket list place, and it's the same thing. It's like 15 to get in there, and I'm like,
That's what
holy
I was
crap.
getting ready to bring. That was exactly the place I was getting ready to bring up because they just opened like a couple of years ago. I'm like, you guys are already charging this insane amount of money for a place that just opened.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, I feel some of these places when they get a celebrity, they start to use that as, you know, Nick Groff did Death Walker out of there
Yeah.
and caught some cool stuff, you know, and that's where I saw it and I was like, Brushy's definitely a cool place, you know. So that was that whole time slip, stone tape theory stuff where he heard, you know, someone say, if I go back and I think about it, it's like they thought he was the ghost.
Yeah.
And it's that, you know, are we the spirits to the ones that are there? You know, that's the cool stuff, you know, that we're in this field to find out. Oh, he's locked up a little bit there.
Oh,
There we go.
Yep. I'm good.
So yeah, that is definitely one of those places that we would love to get into.
Yeah.
When we started the podcast, we thought we were a Tennessee podcast for a while. That first month, it was everyone in Tennessee, and they're like, "Oh, you know, we're just an hour from Brushy or 2 hours from Brushy," and I'm just over here like, "Stop."
Yeah, I would be burning way too many paychecks going there if that was that close.
I feel like we were cursed for a while. We went and investigated Hell's Bar back in the day. And of course, back in the day, Hell's Bar and Old South Pittsburgh didn't get along because of owners and whatever. 2 weeks after we left Hell's Bar, a tornado come through and blew the place apart.
Oh,
blew. And so I say that because we went and investigated Ashmore Estates. And 3 days after we went to Ashmore Estates, tornado come by and blew that place apart. And I'm like, man, we got to find some new places where there ain't any tornadoes.
Right? Yeah, get up in the mountains or something.
Yeah.
And dude, that first time that it got hit in Ashmore was in January. We were there; it was 18 degrees outside, and we stayed 16 hours. Like we didn't go to bed. We went and investigated. We went 8, and we came back and we stayed until the early morning. And you know, I will say again, get emotional about it because 3 days later, you see the place torn apart.
Yep.
You're like, man, I was just there, you know, and you don't feel bad that it missed you. You feel bad because that's a place where the spirit's like, hey, what the hell is happening here?
Yep.
Right.
And at the time, Scott owned it at the time before Robin took over. He lived in a trailer 50 yards away from that place and never got touched.
Well, that's good. But yeah, that'd be.
So we got a chance to go back and do a fundraiser. We got a bunch of locations to open or to give us some investigations. So we raised almost $12,000 to help them put a new roof on that place.
Nice.
So,
Nice. Yeah. Gosh, time has flown by. Jason, you got any last questions for Jason?
Yeah, just kind of on the EVP King, you know, subject a little bit. You know, we talked about, you know, the recorders you use and kind of how you do it. Do you find yourself kind of going into a different space when, you know, trying to get these EVPs, you know, or are you just kind of opening yourself up and hearing what's there?
Yeah, I just kind of open myself up and try to hear what's there. You know, try to normally, you know, if I've got somebody with me, I don't ever want to take over an investigation and stop it and say, hey, can I play this back for you real quick? I try to be, you know, kind of open about it. It's like, look, you know I'm kind of, you know, I still do a few public investigations. It's not bad because there's not that many people and you're trying to teach as you go as well, you know. And I've given away recorders over the years of these things because, you know, I want people to, you know, you might find kids that are, you know, never been on an investigation. You just kind of want to bring them into it. I say kids, you know, teenagers, because that's a good place for them to be at outside of, you know, the craziness we see in the world today. Put them in a haunted location. Let them find some fun stuff to do.
Yeah, we do a ghost hunting 101 event for teens a couple times a year, and yeah, you know, bring them in and we teach them about all the equipment and, you know, different types of hauntings and stuff like that, and then we let them, you know, we break them into a couple groups and, you know, let them have fun and investigate. And yeah, it's really cool watching them, They always seem to start out slow, but by the end of the night, man, they're going 100 miles an hour. And
Oh,
just
yeah.
And some of the questions that they ask, it's cool because it's stuff that you don't even think about, but as a teen, they have all these questions and it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
And that's great because, you get stuck sometimes with even the places you go to or the events you go to, and they're telling people, hey, ask if they know what year it is, and do you know your dad? Like the same old dead questions, I'm like, so when you space out to new stuff, I think the spirits understand, hey, we never heard this before.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the spirits are attracted more to, maybe the wrong word, but they definitely take to kids obviously more than adults do, because adults are, always wanting to be touched or pushed or whatever. And I've only had that happen. I've only had that happen one time. I was laying in a morgue bin in the St. Joseph, or the Glory Psychiatric Museum in St. Joseph, Missouri. And this is the morgue bin is inside a concrete wall. So when you shut the door, you're in there. There's no moving around. You're on a plate, you're on a tray.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember laying there and listening, and I just felt something, pinch my shoulder 3 times.
Oh,
and
man.
Oh yeah. So you're stuck.
Yep.
And of course I'm like, holy shit, something, and they heard me outside and opened the door. They're like, what happened? I was like, something just grabbed my shoulder 3 times.
Yeah. Well, it was like last weekend. I had something really weird happen that I've never had before. Aaron and I and my kids were actually doing an investigation, and we're sitting there on the stage, and all of a sudden, the only thing I can compare it to is being in a small earthquake. Is like I felt my whole body in the chair I was sitting in start shaking. And Aaron was like 5 feet from me, and it stops. And I'm like, did you all feel that? And everyone's like, no, we didn't feel anything, which made it even crazier because it was so intense. But no one else felt it. It's like, all right, y'all trying to make me look crazy here.
Well, and that's, something like that happened at Nelson Museum to me,
Yeah.
Where the floor felt like it lifted and just dropped out from under me like 3 inches. And it was just, yeah.
Which is interesting because, the Nelson Museum it's right around the corner from where we were last weekend doing it. So, why are we getting that same kind of activity in 2 different spaces,
So is this, I'm going to ask this real quick before I go into the story. Is this an hour-long show?
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
45 minutes to an hour. We try to keep it,
I'll try my best to slim this down as best I can. So you bring up earthquake. So we got a call from a real estate agent in St. Joseph, Missouri. It's kind of how we hooked up the Glory Psychiatric Museum. And my stepdaughter, she's a for real medium, even though she's, I guess you can say, stepdaughter, even though we're divorced, but we would usually get online on historic properties and scroll the page, and she just say stop. So we saw this house in St. Joseph, Missouri, and she's like, call the real estate lady, because it was for sale at the time. So called her, and I was like, it's going to sound weird, but we're a ghost hunting group out of Kentucky. Wanted to ask you a couple questions about this place. And the lady's like, oh my God. She's like, we've been trying to find somebody to come investigate this place. She's like, wow. We've been there, in there and out of there and taking pictures, and all the pictures come out black. There's nothing in them. So, all right, well, let's talk about it and we'll get it set up. And she's like, well, let me tell you about the guy who bought it. And he was a former Roman Catholic priest from London, England. He bought this place for $400,000 sight unseen and moved from England to St. Joseph, Missouri.
Interesting.
So we get, we're like, all right, we're going to make the trip. 13-hour drive. We're going to make the trip. So a bunch of us went, took a group with us. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Living Dead Paranormal.
I haven't.
Yeah. They used to do that stuff quite a bit. Now they're doing their own thing on YouTube, but, we took a group with us, and there's like 8 of us. And so we get there and, we meet the guy and find out the house is completely gutted out. He's never lived in it. He's been renting a house down the street, and you got a 12,000 square foot house that's never been lived in. Like it's gutted to the boards almost. And so we meet him, we walk through the place, start taking pictures. Every picture we take comes out. And like, oh crap, how do they get taking pictures not to come out? And here we get here and they're all coming out.
Yeah.
So, we kind of talked to him and went about our days like, hey, we're going to go check out the psychiatric museum and we'll come back and set everything up for a night. And he's like, well, you guys stay at my house. You don't need to get a hotel room. We're like, really? He's like, yeah, I got plenty of room. So my stepdaughter can pick up when there's obviously stuff around. She can see, talk, whatever. It doesn't matter. And she found this out when she was 13. So we're sitting downstairs talking to this guy in the kitchen. He starts drinking wine and we're talking and whatever. And I just see her look over and she's got tears in her eyes. And he looks at her and he said, "You saw it, didn't you?" And I'm just completely oblivious to what he's talking about. And she said, "We got to go." And so we went upstairs and she said, "I saw something enter his body from behind and I saw his chest swell up." And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "It's outside the room." She's like, "Don't stay next to me. It's outside the room." So I'm just like on all alerts here. I'm calling a couple of people here in Kentucky that are remote viewers. I'm like, "What are we dealing with here?" And they're like, trying to explain, you all don't need to go investigate. So if you go investigate this house, this thing's going to follow you home. I was like, "Well, I didn't drive 13 hours to not investigate." So we get ready for that night and I'm just arguing. I'm like, "I'm going to investigate. I don't care what, if it, jumps inside me." Finally, we got to talking and it's like, "All right, fine. Me and her will stay at the house here and you guys go investigate. You just keep us in the loop of everything that's going on." So we've got a walkie with the group and they're telling us, "Hey, we're walking up the house," and every bit of this is being filmed. We've got 8 different cameras running. And they get to the front door and he throws the keys to the front door of this place. And they're like, "What are you doing?" He said, "The distance the house key is from the door will tell me how angry this thing is." And they're like, "What is this guy lost his mind?"
Yeah.
So they walk in the house and they start asking about, if you're in the basement, because that's what we had heard, whatever's in there is in the basement. And they walk in the house, they've got all the cameras around, the lights are on. Well, he starts kind of losing it. He's like, "Get those camera lights out of my face." And he's walking with a cane and he starts banging on the floor and he starts speaking in Latin. Now, we didn't know what he was saying at the time. They were telling me, "It's like, look, man, this guy's, banging on the floor, whatever." He starts speaking in Latin. And when we come back home, we took it to the diocese back home. It's like, "What did he say?" And they were like, he said, "Come forth, Lord of." And before he got to that last word, there were screams coming through the cameras.
Oh
And
my
they
God.
said, they called me on the walkie. It's like, "Dude, this house is shaking like an earthquake. Like the walls are banging. Everything is like, this guy just flipped a switch and everything just come on." And so he starts asking, or the guys that are investigating start asking, "Hey, if you're here in the basement, show yourself." And he looks at them and is like, "It's not here. It's at the other house with my stepdaughter." So he walks out the front door and the entire place just shuts down. He walks in, everything goes crazy. He walks out, everything stops. He walks back to the house and they're like, "Hey, he's on his way back. We're going to look, we're going to stay up here and see if we can get anything." He walks into the room and there's like 10 people in the room. That there's some people that flew in from New Mexico that he was friends with that wanted to see what all this was about. And we're sitting in the middle of this sofa and he looks dead at us and he's like, "Where's Jason and Cassidy at?" Looking dead at us like didn't see us there, even though we're right in front of him.
Wow.
And so I get a phone call from the people back home that are remote viewers. It's like, "Where are you guys at?" I'm like, "Well, we're right here." It's like, "We don't see you. We don't feel you." It's like, all we see is a lady in a white dress that's like 6 foot tall. And there's a lady sitting next to me in a white dress that's 6 foot tall. Her name was Zelda Magadesian. And she was one of his friends that flew in from New Mexico. And she's like, "I don't know who this lady is, but whoever she is, she's blocking whatever is there away from you guys to try to protect you all." And it's the craziest thing about this is we left that night. When they got back, we said, "Hey, we're going to go check out a baseball field," which we were going to check out because supposedly there's some stuff going on a baseball field there. So we told him, "Hey, we'll be back, in a little bit. We're going to check this place out." We got in the car and drove to Kansas City and literally stopped and got a hotel and just tried to figure out what the hell just happened. And none of us for a couple of weeks could sleep. A couple of guys were waking up in the middle of the night, felt like they said that there was a rosary on their chest burning, and just everybody was having crazy dreams.
Yeah.
And I think, coming back from that, we got a chance to talk to the diocese in St. Joe because when this guy showed up in the town, they were like, "Where'd this guy come from? Why is he here in our town?" So they did a lookup on him. And again, nobody told us this because we just kind of come in blind from a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. He had been part of 134 last rites and 13 exorcisms in England. Mm. So he had something attached to him that he knew about, and obviously we found out about.
Yep.
Wow.
And this is the craziest part about it. So we didn't talk to him but one time over the next couple of weeks. And we, as a group, said, let's just keep this to ourselves because this has kind of screwed us up for a little bit. We didn't want to talk about it when nobody didn't want to put it out there or anything.
Yep.
And I get a phone call from Paranormal Witness on Sci-Fi. And they were like, hey, we want to talk to you about your investigation you did. I said, which one? I said, and who got in touch with you? I was like, I did plenty of investigations. They're like, the one you did in St. Joseph, Missouri. And I'm like, I'm looking, I'm on the phone. I'm like, nobody was supposed to say anything. And I said, appreciate the offer, but I said, we don't want to talk about it.
Right.
And the guy tried, and I'm like, dude, you don't understand. Like, I don't want to talk about it. None of us do. So to this day, everybody said we never called him. So that was the weirdest thing. How did they get in touch with somebody or whatever to find out to call me? Because I'm like, you don't understand what we run into. Your stuff is a TV show. This is real. I said, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring it up.
Yep.
And we never did. We never did. And lastly,
yeah, be like, you got the wrong person. We didn't investigate anywhere near there.
Right. Yeah. We weren't even there.
And lastly on that, and then I'll let you guys talk, but our regular film guy from Indiana, he stayed a couple of days and shot some B-roll stuff in the town. And he just told me this a year ago because I called him. Unfortunately, his daughter passed away in a car accident. And he said, I got a question. He said, did I ever tell you about what I saw when I came back home from St. Joe? And I said, no. He said, I'm a runner by trade. I'll just go out and run all the time. He does a lot of running. And he said, I'm running through the park where I always run. And he said, there was a guy in front of me. And he turned around and looked at me while I was running and stopped me dead in my tracks. He said, he literally changed from a human into like a reptilian figure is what he said. And I was like, what? And he said, I swear. He said, I never lie about this. He said, the dude changed into like a reptilian figure. He said, so I don't know if it had something to do with St. Joe or what the deal was. And so I don't know, man, that's a crazy thing. And people ask me all the time, like, trust me, you believe me, I don't care. We saw it. We heard it. We've got the footage, so that's the craziest investigation I've ever had a chance to be a part of. So,
wow.
Yeah, and I think that shows, there's so many channels out there now that, they go to a place and they get some, maybe intense activity and everyone, wants to throw out the word demon or, it's evil, there's a portal, all this kind of stuff. And, I think, they don't even know what evil feels like. The intensity that you and your stepdaughter experienced and how this guy couldn't even see you in the same room because you had someone protecting you to the level that a remote viewer couldn't tell where you are. That is, I think that is what a true evil experience would be like.
And I hate the word demonologist because I'm like, if you really came up on something evil like that, do you think you could actually deal with it? You call yourself a demonologist. Like, do you think you could actually deal with something like that?
Right. Yeah. You're dealing with powers that, most people can't even comprehend at that level.
Oh, definitely.
That's it. Like the regular people out here that don't do what we do and going to these places, see some of these places and they're like, oh, that's pretty scary, or that's, maybe the worst that's out there. And they don't realize that there's a lot worse.
Yep. Oh, definitely.
There's this obviously shows that there's worse out there.
Well, and we've experienced, I'm going to say something extremely grumpy, I think is what we're dealing with, right?
Right.
It's just not a friendly person is all it is. And that can get really freaking intense really quick. When you enter that room and a room that has no windows and no lights on goes darker somehow. And you just feel that heavy, pressure in your chest of get the hell out of here now. I don't want you here. Yeah. And that is I think a normal spirit, right? That just either wants to be left alone or is just a miserable person.
Right.
So I couldn't even imagine, the amplitude or the magnitude of difference, in something like that to an actual evil spirit or entity.
Well, the craziest thing about it is the place is bed and breakfast now. And I went to stay there 2 years ago. And the guy literally, I don't know what the deal is with the guy. He owns a couple places there, but he was like, I told him, I said, I was here a few years ago. And he's like, oh, you're with the group that investigated this place. And he said, I'd heard about it. And I said, yeah, and I said, I just booked a room there. And he's like, well, I don't let anybody investigate here. I was like, I didn't come to investigate, which I did, but I was like, I can't believe I drove here. And the guy's like, oh, I don't let anybody investigate. He's like, but I found out, that I had double bookings and whatever. So do you care to stay in the carriage house next door? And I said, I don't care. Well, there wasn't nobody booked in there but me. He just didn't want me in the house.
Yeah.
And he said, I've got two spirits here that I know of. There's a little girl upstairs and there's a guy upstairs. And I don't want you bothering them. And I was like, this whole thing was weird to me. I'm like, dude, I'm not investigating. So I went to the carriage house next door. It's literally just attached to the house. And I was like, it's spirits. They're obviously able to move from the house to the carriage house. So I'm not worried about it.
Right.
And it's the only time that I've ever got a full sentence across. I use the SB7 every once in a while, not a lot. But I'm asking him, like, if you're over in the house, can you come over here and explain to me, kind of why this guy is keeping me away from this house? Why doesn't he want me over there? Because I looked the entire night. There was not another car there. So he lied to me about the fact of double booking and everything else.
Yeah.
And there was a sentence that came across and said, I don't think you like the answer to his, or I don't think he liked the answer to your question. Full sentence. I'm like,
wow.
Are you serious? I mean, I dropped the thing and the floor. I was like, hold on a second. It literally just said, I don't think you like the answer to your question.
Yeah. That's an intelligent response.
I'm like, there's no radio show out there or anything this thing is channeling through to hear something like that. So,
Yep. Wow.
So did you ever hear what happened to, to the owner that
he moved back to New Mexico and to his mom's house. She passed away. He moved back to New Mexico. I haven't even checked on him in forever because we were just kind of like, look, man, he called us one day. I was like, look, let us just kind of be, where we are and you be where you are.
Yep.
And I think the crazy thing is I've got a lady in Pensacola, Florida. Her name is Erica Busarani. She's like, she's worked with the FBI and all kinds of stuff on missing person cases. I mean, she's a remote viewer. And I called her about this place before we went. And I said, let me ask you a question. I said, can you tell me anything about this? She said, what's the guy's first name that owns this house? So all I told her, I said, Richard. And she's like, okay, I'm seeing a blue-gray house. I'm seeing a well in the backyard. I'm seeing a big tree in the front yard of the house. He sleeps on the first floor on the right side of the house. He's been having heart issues. She's like, what's the house look like? I said, a big red sandstone, 12,000 square foot mansion. She said, well, call him and ask him where he's at. So I call him and I was like, Richard, this is Jason. I said, let me ask you, where are you at right now? And he's like, I'm at my mom's house in New Mexico. And I said, what color is it? He's like, it's like a blue-gray color. And literally, I explained to him, hey, I talked to this lady about us coming and she told me this, and everything I said to him, this guy was like, who is this lady? Like, there is a well in the backyard. I just got back from having EKG done, 2 weeks ago. Like, she's mind blowing when you talk to her. So she just told us to be careful. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about the place, but we're always careful where we go. Obviously we didn't know what we were walking into. So
I tell you, some of these remote viewers are amazing. I've heard stories, at the Monroe Institute doing the training there. They'll have a group of 20 people in a room and a stack of envelopes, across the room on a desk. And, to like pass the class, you're not even allowed to touch your envelope. You have to, mentally or, remote view into that stack of envelopes, find yours, find the coordinates inside that envelope, and then tell them what's at those coordinates. And it's just amazing to me.
I would love to see something like that. I mean, the craziest thing I think we've seen, and I'm glad that she's kind of moved out of this. It was fun whenever my stepdaughter was doing this stuff because she was a teenager. She got to go and investigate with all the people from TV, and they kind of treat her like little sister,
Nice.
And it got, we got to travel all over the place. And, but, a guy that we know here in Bowling Green owns Kentucky Thermal Imaging, and he's got, as he calls it, the Lamborghini of FLIR cameras. You're talking like $35,000.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did Hell's Bar, he's like, hey, I want to take her out into the water where the cemetery is. And depends on how high the water is, the mausoleum will stick up out there and the cemetery, the headstones. And he takes her out there and he comes back. He said, you're not going to believe this. And I said, what? He said, when she starts picking up on spirit activity, she's like, all the blood flows to one side of her brain. And I said, what? And he showed me on the FLIR camera, like what they took pictures wise. And it literally shows white hot only on one side of her brain.
Wow.
Like he said, literally the blood just translates over to one side of her brain when she starts doing her reading. And I was like, we better keep this under wraps or somebody's going to try to do some kind of experiment on you, thinking, how do you do that, you know? So.
Wow. We just picked up a thermal. Pretty cool. Yeah. Can't wait to do more with it.
Yeah, and I noticed when you were using it that you can see, you know, the blood flow, you know, where there's increased areas of blood flow in people's face, like in the cheeks and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe we'll have to do some experiments and, you know, see what happens during our double Estes and things like that.
Oh, yeah. When Gina's picking stuff up and yeah, for sure. Well, Jason, it's been awesome having you on. You have some great stories. You've been to a ton of places. I'm sure we just barely scratched the surface of that.
Well, dude, I appreciate you guys letting me come and talk a little bit, you know, about some places like that. I definitely look forward to keeping in touch with you guys. And hey, I love to travel, man. Anybody knows me knows I love to travel. So give me some coordinates or whatever where I need to go in Wyoming. I've never been there, so it's a new place to scratch off the list. So.
Well, we're not. We're the capital city, so you get out here to Cheyenne, and we got you a place. Done deal. Nice. All right. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll shove you into the green room and chat with you again in here pretty quick.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Wow. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep. I really like that story about St. Joe. I'm real interested in that, you know, that side of it. And that sounded pretty damn intense, honestly. Yeah, we've done some cool places and we've had some stuff happen to us, but nothing near that dark. And that's a good. Yeah. Yep. I don't think that's anything anyone ever wants to just step into. I think you kind of know that you want to know what you're going into, right? Yeah. Especially for something like that. Yep, absolutely. So, thanks everyone for watching. We do still have, let me look real quick just to make sure so that I don't say something that we don't actually have. We still have 2 tickets to Saturday's event at the Nelson Museum. Great place. It's a private collection, tens of thousands of pieces, access into some places that the public does not get into. So someone needs to snatch up those last couple tickets because you're going to have a great night. Yep. I love going to the Nelson Museum. I'm looking forward to this weekend. So yeah, it's kind of my reward for getting done with the test, right? All right, get done with the test and then you can go hunt. So right. That's your test passing gift or something. Yes, there we go. Because we know you're going to pass it. Everyone, thanks for watching tonight. Maybe we'll have Jason on again to go over some other places he's been to. He's been to so many. Absolutely. Yep. All right. Well, have a great week, everyone. We'll see you all next week. Unraveling the Darkness would like to thank Horn Paranormal Research and Twinkle Twinkle Little Store for sponsoring our show. If you're craving more paranormal content, don't forget to check out our YouTube and Facebook channels at Way Out West Paranormal and Unraveling the Darkness. You can catch all of our episodes of Unraveling the Darkness on Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and YouTube. Be sure to like and subscribe as it helps others find the show and join in on the paranormal fun. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, keep your lights on, stay safe, and remember, the truth is out there, and it might just be closer than you think.